Hi guys, this is Toby Bakre. I'm on Plus TV Africa and I'm going to be answering some of your questions. 5 fitness tips for you guys. First of all, drink lots of water. Second of all, don't eat later than 7, 8 p.m. Stay active throughout your whole day. Instead of taking the elevator, sometimes take the stairs. Stay active. Enroll in the gym. Be it yoga, be it weights, be it cardio, just, something extra just to keep your body in shape. And the last one, mind your business. Am I dating anyone? At the time, very single. As in, what's another word for single? I'm like single Pringle. What are my future plans? I plan to do more in acting, more in hosting, do a lot of creative projects, work with a lot of brands, and start my own business. Will I ever do music seriously? I'm just always going to play with it for now. I did a collaboration with Spyro, a song called Japa, and it's a tune. So maybe I'm going to go back and play again sometime. And then it depends on the feedback. If I'm getting feedback like, oh, okay, maybe they're playing my songs in the club and stuff like that, maybe I can say, okay, maybe I'll be a performing artist, get someone to write the song, then just go to the studio and do it. Maybe. Never say never. Who is my favorite Nollywood actress and why? Okay, I think I'm going to give 2 answers, or 3 answers. First of all, the first lady, Genevieve, and that's because she's so good at what she does and she's very professional. And she's a pioneer. She's kind of taking this whole thing to the next level, so yeah. And then for the newer guys, Eferele and Ini, I combined the two. I just like them. I like their movies too. That's all. My daily routine and what makes Toby Bakre Toby Bakre. You see, I wake up in the morning. First of all, I pray. When you're thankful for the little things, just wake up with a heart of gratitude, like thank God for life, for the little things. And then after that, I play some music, get into the day already, like fast bumpy music. So I'm getting into the shower, I'm already moving, plan out my day, do some exercise. And so when I step out of the house, man, I'm already, the vibe is up there, so nothing can bring me down for the day. So going like that, and it's almost gonna be a good day. Like you see, right now I just have like great vibes. In my head, I'm still playing the song I woke up to. It's all good. All right, thank you very much, guys. Signing out.
Hear the stories making the headlines.
The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria.
I'm here at Eunice Bashorin Street, where
the fire destroyed our transformer complete.
The lowest level you can.
Plus TV Africa, the big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
in recent times, getting employment is a major testimony. Getting a fantastic job, that's a cut with all the cream. So in what world does anyone ever leave that sort of job? Well, in this world. Not Your 9 to 5 show covers all the seemingly questions and intrigues.
I can't work for anybody. Number of times I spent with shoes, I see shoes in my dreams sometimes.
I can't be waiting for salary.
I know we have a lot of challenges.
Working for people is like starting from the scratch.
We have political issues, we have socio-economic issues, we have so many, we even have spiritual issues.
I don't think I can do 9 to 5 anymore. So this is not your regular 9 to 5.
It's my life, my world.
Join me, Amaka Okoye, on Not Your 9 to 5, showing on Monday 5:30 p.m. and Thursday 11:30 a.m. West African time.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
When I start hearing the shoot of gun,
Whatever I've done.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Now, Nigeria has been described as a country with great economic potential yet to be fully harnessed. In 1957, agriculture contributed 65.7% to the country's GDP, but over time, this declined significantly to 41% by 1999 after the petroleum boom in the 1970s. But as at 2019, oil contributes 8% to the country's GDP, which makes for 70% of the government revenue and 90% of foreign exchange earnings. Now, the distortion in turn produced adverse effects on the production levels of both food and cash crops in the country. However, the Nigerian government is taking strides to diversify the economy with some interventions such as the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, launched on the 5th of April 2017, investments in critical infrastructure, implementation of the 2019 capital budget, the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme, border closures, amongst others. All right. Here with me in the studio to speak on this is Segun Shele. He is a chartered accountant and consultant who joins me live in the studio. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Now we have all of these things. Nigeria used to be heavily dependent on agriculture until we found oil.
Yeah.
The black gold, quick money, right?
Exactly.
But how would you say we have done economically? How well have we done economically as a country?
Okay, well, thank you. I think basically the mistake was having to put all our eggs in one basket. The advent of the discovery of crude oil made the Nigerian people suddenly develop an appetite for consumption. You know, and to be able to fuel this, fortunately we had a money spinning product.
Okay, we'll hold on quickly. Let's take a quick break. You're still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome to The Advocate, a program that thrashes out all the topical issues of the day.
When you are in government, you don't see nothing wrong with whatever is happening. The moment you are out there, everything is wrong.
You can't even see many women now, and when they're there, they're not even really making a mark, and then they have an NYSC problem and this and that.
Really disastrous for a president
to even say
be unaware of the chief
It's
justice.
a ploy. It could be a strategy.
That strategy was
It's
very
backfired.
very terrible strategy. Because the buck stops at your table.
Whether it's that we don't look after our cities, and quite frankly, Nigeria is becoming a very ugly place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, you know, the news.
I don't have the Nigeria. The Nigeria of my dream in 1985 was when we did Nigeria is 25, how shall we survive? Arise, salute the nation, join the celebrate. That's when you dreamt about Nigeria. It was a thing of pride. I mean, you could tell Andrew not to check out. Right now, Andrews and Desolas and Tonys and Bisolas and Jumokes have all checked out to Canada. Nobody can tell them to stop. We're all encouraging them to check out. Because you've spent years, if you've been around long enough, you've spent years with government after government after government, and it's been the same thing. It's been the same promises not kept. It's been the same people in power. How do you go on dreaming about Nigeria and talking about the Nigeria of your dreams when serpents are swallowing millions of naira and people are talking about it publicly in your country? What are you dreaming about? What's that dream? What's it going to be like? Someone steals X hundreds of million and it's still in the kitchen cabinet of your president. What Nigeria are you dreaming about? When the head of the fish begins to stink, the whole body is filled with maggots, I think.
Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa. Still in the studio with me is Segun Shele, who is a chartered accountant and a consultant. Segun, before we went on the break, we were having a conversation around how well we have done economically as a country here in Nigeria.
Okay, well, economically, Nigeria could have done better. Fortunately, we run a modern economy with oil being the sole product that earns us as much as 90% of the foreign exchange that the country depends on. We are a heavily import-dependent nation. And with just a money economy status that we found ourselves with, it puts a lot of pressure on the foreign exchange rate. Now, if only there's a lot of sincerity coming out of government regarding diversification, and rather than play politics with it, castigating other administrations, successive administrations prior to your administration, and that has been the style over the years. If you are not laying the blame on the military government, you are laying the blame on the immediate past administration. I think we should be more futuristic, in our outlook. We seem to be already, as it is, there is a massive decline in infrastructure. There is no way you can grow an economy that has no infrastructure, near to zero infrastructure. When we put in a whole lot more of our effort in growing the infrastructure, the road, power, for example, the level at which we're still talking about less than 5,000 megahertz of power in today's world market is unthinkable. But then the level of corruption we have, which is almost like saying walking in the streets, as it were, has robbed us of all those opportunities that ordinarily we should have been able to cash in on before now. But there seems to be some silver lining from this government, whether it is not playing politics with it or is playing rhetorics, but the fact remains that there has been some intentions to better the infrastructure deficit. And that we can see from the way the budget itself is skewed. Before now, we've had predominantly the expenditure budget of the federal government skewed towards recurrent expenditure. And then you wonder how, yes, how do you grow, how do you develop? Because this is talking about salaries and wages and overheads. Differently from you providing the necessary infrastructure, rail projects, road, power, you know, these are things that can drive the economy.
On people's businesses.
More or less. And even helping driving the economy.
Of course.
You know, when we talk about every business around here in this country, we are more or less our own local government. You provide your power, you provide your water, you even provide your security. Unfortunately, we used to say this some 10, 15 years back, but of late it has gotten worse. The level of insecurity in this country is almost tilting towards what you have in Syria and Yemen and Afghanistan and those kind of places. You know, nobody seems to be safe.
And now, with the issue of the oil still having that bulk of effect on our foreign reserves, isn't it quite disturbing? And the fact that we need to focus on more labor-intensive sectors that would generate jobs for the people.
Unfortunately, you know, this process started many years back. This over-dependence on crude oil started many years back and left every other aspect or prospects of making money, foreign exchange that is, you left it to be totally moribund. Now, for you to be able to make that change, it's not something that will just happen in a flash of a pan. It has to be efforts put up over years, consistently, you know, for there to be a meaningful change. Now, this administration, in its own wisdom, felt, okay, the best way to start is to even stop the pull on the foreign exchange. And that is what? Curtail the importation. So there was a list at the time, the 44 list, 41, is it 41 again, that the CBN actually drew up to make it a restriction for you to access foreign currencies if you have your item on that list.
We should be increasing.
Yes, which naturally helps save some foreign currencies to extend to the results we are seeing being visible in the foreign reserve. Now, you need to still generate. The problem of the country today has actually been generating enough revenue. The revenue level is so low. So reducing the pool on foreign currencies like they've done, and they seem to consistently even start applying now with the closures of the borders, is also having its own effect in a subtle way. But like you rightly said, putting the people, the youth especially, the population tells us we have about 65% youth.
As our youth,
yes, in the demographics, exactly. That can be useful for manufacture. Unfortunately, each time when we import, what we are doing is we are exporting our jobs.
Of course.
So to be able to make that trend, a reverse of that trend, it's simple. Curtail the level of import. When people talk about the border closure, yes, for a business person who seems to have invested monies, probably that he got from a bank facility, will be counting his losses, you know, but at the larger sphere, the country is bleeding. And how do I mean? Countries, developed countries in the world, the United States, for example, that is perceived to be the world leader in the economic bracket, controls its borders. It controls what comes into its country.
But now the difference between what's happening in the United States and what's happening here in Nigeria, you see that while they are protecting their borders, they are making relevant efforts to make sure that those infrastructures necessary to help them produce whatever it is that is coming into their countries are made available for the people.
The first problem, corruption. Corruption is the only window through which monies that are meant for infrastructural projects are siphoned. It will be pretty difficult for them to, quote and unquote, take out monies that are meant for salaries of staff. So they will find a way to make sure that that is paid. But when it comes to trying to fix a road somewhere or do a rail project somewhere or put in extra generating plants to ensure that the public power utility comes up and runs well, then someone is either overinflating the invoice or outrightly collects a mobilization fee and into thin air. The guy disappears with the connivance of government officials. So all the talk that there's a reversal seem to be in place right now, that things seem to be changing, we need to see more. You know, and of course, because we've come from a very disadvantageous position over the years, the little effort may seem not to count for anything, because we want to see more effort being put in. Now, when you have a almost ideal, totally almost ideal workforce, as large as we have with the youth in Nigeria, and yet we are not getting them into any productive work, we are not surprised with the level of insecurity. The rate at which kidnapping has snowballed. Before, it used to be armed robbery. Now, they seem not to even be involved in armed robbery as much. What has taken over has been the quick, easy way, get somebody, keep him somewhere, demand, and then they get even big monies than they used to get in the days when they were going, yes, to do their armed robbery activities. You know, so you need to make a change. You need to make a reverse. And how do you do this? We expect that first things first, the Nigerian economy or the Nigerian society is locked down on the definition of what success is in our part of the world, and that is how much money you have, the material possessions you can display. That shows how successful you are. So somehow we need to make that change in the psyche, in the orientation of the average Nigerian. That has to be corrected, because it is not about monies. It's nothing. But we celebrate and over-celebrate those who have the little of it to throw around. Then the much of it becomes almost like your lord and master. And everybody now has this crease to ensure or to try in every way possible to amass it anyhow. And nobody asks you where you get it from. What they want to is, you have arrived. And so let me be part of this, your celebration of your success. Now the youth, who ordinarily should be involved or be gainfully employed in the manufacturing real sector of the economy, they are also in the rat race. We mistakenly are also creating something right now in this economy that is laughable. We have an inroad, as it were, in today's market, in today's Nigeria's economy, a whole lot of easy money-making activities and ventures. When you have all those gaming, bet on this and bet on that, you know, without robbing or pulling anybody's business down, it has its effect on the economy. And that has been the issue. A whole lot of the young, vibrant
minds
that can be employable, is employable in today's market, will tell you how much are you want to pay me, how much are you going to pay me if you try to get them into a job. Because for them, it's like, if I can stake my money on this game, my return is even more than what you want to pay me that I'm to wait for 30 days. So there's no encouragement. So these are things that ordinarily government should control as a matter of necessity.
Now, do you think that the government is intentionally trying to put in strategies that would make us more competitive on the global front?
That's neither here nor there, because first thing first, we are not even sustaining the economy within before we can now start thinking of without. So being globally competitive, obviously we are not. And that is why goods that are flooding our market, and we have substitute locally manufactured goods of the same type, would naturally be sold at lower prices than you have with the manufactured goods. The manufactured goods in Nigeria have inherently high cost of production.
Yeah,
because of what they have to go
through.
So they can never be as competitive as the guys who are bringing in products from countries where everything is available to them.
But that's already putting us at a disadvantage.
That is where we are. And unfortunately, or rather fortunately, federal government, in its own wisdom, believing and saying that has been the ugly trend the economy seems to be nose diving into, decided on the clamp down on the borders. That if I can restrict goods and services going in and out of the country, especially because most of it actually coming. The bulk of the goods that go into the Benonua port, the final destination is Nigeria. For those who have seen the trade at that end of the border, the most of the trucks that pick goods from their port destination is Nigeria. So it's obvious that even the importers in Nigeria decide or deliberately decide to use the ports there, even rather than use our own ports, which will even bring in more money, as it were, because any vessel that berths would have fees to pay the MPA, which is a revenue-earning agency of government, and which will naturally help shore up the revenue base on the non-oil export window.
But how sustainable do you think this is? Because now when you take a look at previous administrations, you see that, oh, somebody started a project, and then because the administration has gone, some of those projects do not get to the completing stage. Is it no time for us to start off, having more national strategies rather than political party strategies?
Unfortunately, there's a rhetorical statement of government is a continuum here in this part of the world. And it's actually not really achieving that purpose. If a government can sit down, honestly, and develop a long-term strategic plan on how to get Nigeria out of this quagmire we found ourselves in the economic doldrum, it would be a lot better for it to be sold to the Nigerian populace, bought by them, and have support from international community. That even when a new government is coming in and does something differently, especially if the government, sitting government at the time, puts in commensurate, honest effort to see through those strategies to the extent where it is meaningfully chunking out results, even if it is coming in trickles, but you can see that, okay, and it is well communicated, that, look, we are not going to get there like tomorrow. It's going to take us some time to, it's like a marathon, and it's going to take us some time to get there. And we communicate effectively.
And document. There's
naturally.
Something around documentation.
Thank you. And then whoever comes in who is derailing from that plan has a likely chance of losing his seat or losing his position in power at the next election, 4 years down the line. If we can sit down and develop a 30, 40, 50-year plan, and break the 30, 40, 50-year plan into manageable one-year events. Thank God this administration, with the help of the National Assembly, is trying now to redirect the budget back to the January, December normal year window, departing from the June, July that we used to get the budget approved and then we start implementation. You heard the president today saying he's going to release, or he's ordering them to release 600 billion for infrastructure for the next 3 months of a budget 2019 that ordinarily is expected to end in another 3 months as it were. But this budget 2019, it would be seen to continue because it just started some couple of months back in July. But if they want to try and move in the 2020 budget to commence from January, we expect him within the next few weeks to lay the budget in front of the House of Assembly for them to start deliberating on it. So if that can happen, and then we can redirect, it can have its own effect. But for them to sit down, not the medium plan, 3-year, 5-year, no, because it's about your administration. You have to leave a legacy, so something that they have to use to refer to us. No, I want to be the one. You saw what happened in Lagos with the former governor, who, because he wanted to ensure that those projects that he commenced were in his name, hurriedly went ahead and started unveiling them. Projects that were far from being completed. No, we should depart from it because of the way we see success around here, for the kind of definition of success that we have created for ourselves, and the politicking and the over-politicking of even the democratic process that we run.
It has now become a menace.
It's not good for us. Countries that either will look at Nigeria and come to Nigeria to learn, to get they're doing better. You can't be talking about Rwanda, for example. What are we talking about here? Rwanda has taken over completely. The Ghanaians that we used to tell to get out, that we told some years back to pack their things and leave the country. Now, Ghana today has become the haven where Nigerians also want to run to. Most of us put our children there, and then you see companies going there now to set up plants. The companies going there, even motor assembly plants. I read somewhere back, whether it's true or not, I don't know. I think I read for Honda, I read Nissan, about 5 major car auto companies, car assembly companies are trying to get their plants into Ghana. Why? Stable democracy, wonderful security guaranteed, infrastructure, road, power. Some couple of years back, Ghana celebrated 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of non-stop power supply. We find that pretty difficult to achieve here.
And now it's not as if we do not have, it's not like the, the capital necessary is not there, because global wealth reports shows that the global wealth report now stands at $317 trillion. That's a whole lot. And then we see the investments coming into Nigeria from January to May of from January to it was just $14.2 billion, which is quite an abysmal, figure for us.
Between you and I, would you decide to put your hard-earned money in an unstable economy, in a place where you yourself will find it pretty difficult to go to because of security concerns? You probably will not do that. Now, those are the things that actually drive economy. When you have the level of insecurity we have around here, between you and I cannot be bold enough now to take a vehicle and say I'm driving all the way to Abuja or to Kaduna. Even to go through Benin or Road now is a big deal. So how do you expect someone to come into the economy, into a population of about 200 million right now? It's a big market. So, but then this 200 million is not residing only in Lagos, because Lagos seems to be the near perfect safe place when it comes to security. But Lagos is not Nigeria. Yes, it has a major stay in the economy of the country, but it's not Lagos market. Any foreigner who has part of these $317 trillion would want to come and just invest strictly in. He wants to move his product around the country. He wants to go to the places where the people will need his product. But his life is not safe. Lives of Nigerians are not safe. How much more a foreigner? So there's nothing impressive enough for them to want to bring their monies in here. And that is why you have this issue. So if the 14.2, the bulk of it, you realize just about 2.7 billion or there, 2.67 billion or thereabouts, is what goes into the FDIs. So the bulk of the money is out of the 14.2 is actually in the stock market. Where these people just
apparently, we have more foreign portfolio investments coming into the country than foreign direct investment. But before we go, I would like us to watch a brief video of specific business owners here in Nigeria who, are facing some challenges.
It's not a complaint tax, so from what we said, then we pay our tax from there. Yeah, we pay to the local governments. Well, so far so good. For Lagos State, I will rate them yes, because I've seen a lot of things that the past government have done, so I guess it's our tax. Government should not adjust the policy, because the economy these days is not quite encouraging, so government should not adjust the policy.
All right, thank you very much. You're still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa. All right, so basically, we see that business owners keep complaining about the fact that the ease of doing business for them, the economic situation is quite daunting.
It is. Honestly, it is. Like I said earlier, you are like a local government. You're a government on your own. You provide every other thing that's going to be. You start the road. You actually fix the road to your factory. You fix the road to your office. You fix the road to your business premises. So you fix the road. You get your security. You do your water. You get your power. That's calling for too much. And yet you'll be assessed to taxation at the appropriate rate. Thank God for the tax credit scheme. You put up infrastructure and then you get a credit that government is starting of late. Yes, for those who have the might, they are working on it. It's good for them. It's good for the nation. We can now, as much as possible, bridge the gap in the infrastructure deficit. But minus that, what encouragement do we have as a nation? To register a company, how quickly can that happen? How receptive is government and government agencies regarding assisting business owners to get even permits, construction permits? Those are there are 10 parameters that go into determining the ease of doing business of nations. Fortunately, in the latest reports that we saw for 2018, Nigeria has actually moved up to the 12th position under accessibility to credit. I said, oh, so there's something happening to our financial services industry. We are now 12th position, in one of those parameters for, yes, in assessing credit. But yet, in some others, you will go as high as 170, 175 over 190 nations. It's not speaking well. At 146, even in Africa, how many Africans want to come here and do business? Even if because of the population. The population is the only excitement right now, and which ordinarily is supposed to be really for us the best opportunity we can cash in at the moment. The population is supposed to help us a great deal to ensure that this economy can actually make a U-turn, if only we can better it. If we encourage, the telecoms company, the telecoms is another service provider. We've seen the amount of foreign investment that have trickled into the country by the major GSM companies in the country of today. This has gone into the economy to make something work. We have a lot of people employed by these organizations. And yet we have other service providers, even to these companies, that are doing well. So those are the kind of things that can help a change and make the economy become active and vibrant. Government should, as a matter of, I think, well, maybe they're getting right there now. With the Economic Advisory Council, one would assume that with the current level of business people, not just the government officials that we used to have in the old times. These are typical business people. These are people who are, out there criticizing prior to now about some policies of government. They now have the opportunity to make it good, to advise the president directly, and of course any of the other revenue agencies of government or agencies of government that has anything to do with the economy, to try as much as possible to develop programs, develop strategies, ensure that policies that should ordinarily, I would advise that whatever policy that is set up, just like the president said, let it have legal backing. That's the only way that we can sustain when an administration leaves, another one will not throw it overboard. By deliberately bringing in the humanitarian ministry, the Ministry of Humanitarian Services, like the president mentioned earlier today, tells us that, okay, from now on, a ministry has been birthed with staff and necessary support of government. Whatever the cash condition, the conditional cash and all of that social intervention activities and programs of government cannot be thrown overboard if this administration leaves.
Unfortunately, that's all we can have for now, but I know that Nigeria will definitely get it right at some point, sometime.
We will.
God's going to help us somehow. But thank you so much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
You're still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa. I am Irene Ubani. Now I'll take a quick break. We'll be back soon.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Vicky November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
I guess that I was born lucky because on January 17, 1955, 400,000 children from western region of Nigeria filed to go to school free of charge. I was one of those children. And not only that, I was lucky again, to win the USC scholarship for my secondary education. And then, I decided that, no, I want to be a photographer. I started my training in photography. But then I wanted to do film. So there was only one place I could learn right away. On September 20, 1970, I was employed by the Western Nigerian Television, the first in Africa to start my training as a film cameraman. Without all these development and circumstances, and finally, my going to London Film School. Without all these things, there couldn't have been a Today Kelani today.
Welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now, and that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright.
Still make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IO.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi like,
sleeping early.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, have you?
I think we've done very well in the very difficult circumstances in which we took over governance.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody come and say!
The perception in itself does more harm than actual corruption that you have.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
This medal has been directed to empower 1,000 persons with disabilities in each state in the next 12 months.
We now start sharing the shoot of gun.
Every public policy has winners and losers, and some will not be very happy with you, while others, usually the silent majority, will be quite happy.
Fairness, justness, balance, and credibility, as well as integrity. That's what Plus TV Africa is. The way people are going to be able to trust anything that comes out of this continent is when those who are the storyteller about the continent are reliable, dependable, and credible. Tell the story with the emotion of Africans, with the passion of Africans, with the interest of Africans. The story changes from here right now on Plus TV Africa.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. No question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, I know.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproven place.
When you are the only one feeding the people with this news and there is nobody countering them, it becomes, the news.
Welcome to Tea Time on Plus TV Africa, where we bring you the biggest entertainment stories and, of course, analyze them for you.
You can have both parents and still end up as a useless child. I see them every day.
Most times I worry more about where I'm coming from and where I am now, and that determines my next step.
Why are you sounding like an
Alibaba
now?
Plus TV Africa, we're feeling good. No time to dull, everybody feeling alright.
Make music and people are still buying. Sometimes I look myself minimal IU.
Akpala music is for mature-minded people. I got DMs sometimes from Malawi like,
Sleeping early.
Thank you for staying with us. Still on the issue of the economy. On this segment, we will be speaking on our tax system in the country. Tax administration in Nigeria is vested in the 3 tiers of government. Taxes payable to the federal government are administered by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, while those payable to the state government are administered by the state boards of internal revenues. Local governments are also administrators, and they administer both rates and levies collectible by them through their various councils. Worthy of note, however, are the taxes payable by persons doing business in Nigeria, which include the company income tax, personal income tax, capital gains tax, value-added tax, education tax, technology tax, stamp duties, and withholding tax. To speak on the issue of taxation in Nigeria, with me in the studio right now is Temitope Kolade. He's the manager, oil, gas, and power group at Anderson Tax. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the situation around the tax system and tax payment as well in Nigeria, how well would you say that those in which we have given this power to manage our taxes, how well would you say they have done in this regard?
Well, if you're asking to start with, if you're asking the question of how they've done with our taxes, that means we're just asking the government, because it's not just about the Federal Inland Revenue Service. And we need to realize that taxes has been even before the colonial eras. I mean, pre-colonial eras, for example, you will remember that in 1940s we had the Abeokuta Women Union protesting about increment in tax and how those the taxes would probably not be used in their favor. And of course, they also protested about collection of information, census specifically, and how they would use that to capture them for tax purposes. Well, after independence in 1961, the personal income tax came into being, same with the company's income tax. So there is that realization that we needed tax, and tax has been both before colonial and post-colonial. However, between the 1960s and the 1970s, you find that so much of the revenue in Nigeria was from agricultural products, and the marketing boards were used to collect taxes from the farmers then, because it was difficult to collect the income tax from them. But by the time the oil boom came in the 1974, 73, 74, it was much more about oil revenue. How much is it contributing? And As you see, from 1970s to 1980s, the old trajectory changed from between 26% from oil collection, I mean, the revenue altogether, to about 80%, 70%, 80% that we then started accounting for from oil. And non-oil also nosedived from about 73% down to the 20%, the 19%, 18%. So it tells us that not so much has happened with taxes thereafter, because there was so much reliance on oil. And by the 2015, 2016, we then had that recession hit us so badly that we then knew that there was so much of a downslide of oil price, and it then became necessary that we then focus on tax collection. And so maybe we can't really be judging the FRS. What we should, the people that we should assess are the government. And of course, the population has been increasing over and over again.
Over the years.
Yes, so it will be hard. And if you're going to assess how tax money has been spent, it's basically to see our infrastructural facilities, to see what we see around us, how much can we see that is different from what it has been. You would find that most of the infrastructural work that's been done in Nigeria were even done during the military era. We're not seeing much these days because you see most of our revenue go into recurrent expenditure. So if you then ask what exactly is tax money being used for and how well have they used it, it will be a case of how well have workers been paid. For example, you step back and say, why are we talking about an increase in VAT rates from 5% to 7.5%? And some people have said it's because there is going to be an increase in minimum wage and we need to meet that demand. So it's all together. It's about how
But does it add up? Because it looks like you're trying to make money, from increase in taxes to pay those, for the minimum wage. But then wouldn't they be taxed as well?
Yeah, they would be taxed, and they will be taxed on consumption. In fact, when you look at what happened in the 1990s, what the sort of amendments that we saw was more or less giving some sort of waivers to people on their income tax so that they would have more disposable income. And what that does is that when they then spend the money, VAT would then apply on what they buy. By 1993, 1994, we had the sales tax moving into a value-added tax system, such that you could then collect from when people consume. So when you go to the supermarket, when you go to places to purchase, you end up spending the money, but at least you have the money to spend. And spending is what...
Stimulating the economy.
Yeah, spending it was actually stimulates the economy. But we've not had so much to spend. That's the real problem that we have. And if we need to start asking that question, how well have they spent the tax money so far, we will then need to talk about transparency in each of the governments over the years, from the military government to when we started having democracy, and from one term to the other, from one tenure to the other, what have they done with revenue altogether, including taxes here?
Because I know that being a tax administrator, your company, for one, is like the middleman between the taxpayers and the government. You know what these people are generating per time, and then you see the infrastructure deficit that we're still going through in the country. Are there times when you're wondering, what exactly is happening?
Not exactly, because if you then look at the budgets for the year, for example, and you see how much is expected to be collected from taxes, the budget gives you a clear picture of what the money is expected to be spent on, and which is why we said, look at the recurrent expenditure, look at how much you're also going to spend on capital expenditure. And then capital expenditure for now, and what the current government has said is that they will get as much of the funding for capital expenditure from borrowing. So you find that what we are collecting is actually meant for recurrent expenditure to ensure that the ministries continue to run. Of course, we're funding the parliament, we're funding the executives, we're funding the judiciary. So that's so much about what is being used for. And which is why I said the assessment is so much about transparency. Is the government open enough to say that this is how much we've collected this year, this is how much it was spent? We see what they will do, but sometimes we don't see what they have done.
All right, now we have the issue where the FIRS, led by Fowler, you know, we have a point where he's saying that they will need to increase the tax net. What is the level of pressure now being put on the tax authorities?
Well, I think the pressure is much from an outsider's perspective. I understand that virtually every month the chairman has to appear at the Aso Villa to give account of what they are doing about taxes. You'll recall that some time ago too, a letter came from one of the top officials in government asking Mr. Babatunde Fowler to come and explain what has happened over the years in terms of tax collection from 2015 till date. So I think that the pressure is there. The real question is whether there is enough willpower by the government, because there are certain changes that we also expect in the law to ensure that collection is made easy. There are some other things that we also expect from the administrator, being the Federal Inland Revenue Service, as well as the other states' revenue services. And you expect that they begin to digitize things. And that's what you see with the Lagos state government, for example, that tells you that you can now make payments online. Of course, you can do that with the Federal Inland Revenue Service as well. But again, the step that the Lagos state government has taken for that, the Lagos Internal Revenue Service, is that they've also said that they will connect your registration online on their portal with your bank verification number, your BVN. And that makes a lot of sense in terms of when you want to then drag so many people into that tax net. How much do you see with respect to having a platform that it's probably visible to an external party, that they can verify and say, this is how many people we have, this is how much you can see about their income, and this is what is taxable, and this is
transparency.
Exactly.
But then we still have an issue where the tax to GDP ratio is still at an abysmal, you know, situation. Is it really low?
Yeah, it's low, and when you look at that, you need to dissect it properly and say to yourself that where does the revenue come from? Because when you talk about GDP again, it's about what you get from agriculture, what you get from entertainment, what you get from all sort of sectors within the economy.
Services sector.
Yeah, services sector. And you don't see so much of tax collection from all of these places as much as you see from the oil and gas sector. So you find that most of the taxes that is being remitted is actually coming from the oil and gas sector. Well, the current administration of the Federal Inland Revenue Service has tried enough to try to match it and see how much tax revenue it's even generated from non-oil activities. And that's the much that we need, because we have found that oil is no longer sustainable, so to speak. And so you need to then diversify properly and ensure that all of those sectors of the economy also give their share, because that's how you then find that this is what the GDP is. This is what we actually produce in-house. For now, we don't produce more than oil. And unfortunately, you find that most of the production from all of those other sectors are not actually giving their own share of taxes. Again, it's about how informal those sectors operate. Are they really in the face of everyone? Everybody knows the oil giants, for example. They know the big oil guys, so they can easily go to them and say, where is your tax? Pay. But nobody knows the man in the market or the woman in the market who also makes some revenue. Like I said, back in 1970s, when they were using agricultural products money to build the cocoa house and all of those, you find that they used the marketing board to collect that. So there has to be a structure to ensure that everybody pays their own fair share. And again, if you're going to do that, you need to also gain the trust of the people who are going to pay the taxes, because people want to operate under the radar because they know that they're not seeing so much of infrastructural development. They are not seeing difference in what the government is using the money for. Sometimes that's what the view of people have. But when they begin to realize that there's so much that has been collected, has been spent on what it should be spent on, then people will be more willing to pay their taxes.
All right, but on this note, we have a video based on small-scale business owners. I'd like us to take a look at it quickly.
It's an individual tax. It's not a company tax. So from what we said, then we pay our tax from there. Yeah, we pay to the local governments. Well, so far so good. For Lagos State, I will rate them yes, because I've seen a lot of things that the past government have done. So I guess it's our tax. Government should not adjust the policy because the economy these days is not quite encouraging. So government should not adjust the policy. What I would tell the government is to find a way to encourage the small-scale business people like us, you can see in a smaller shop, to encourage us. If there's any way they can assist with loan, then one should be able to pay his or her tax regularly.
Actually, I have two business places here and Nollywood also, and I have my tax paying card, which I do pay in tax office. You know, the essence of tax paying is, at least, if not for anything, to provide the necessary social amenities for the people. But you can see, even particularly in this Lagos, the roads, at least through the road, the way the roads are, will tell you that even the government are not doing good. I don't even know where they are channeling the fund to. That's just my take. Actually, I'm even feeling the pain of paying the tax without getting the value of what I'm paying for. So if there's any change in it, don't think, as a matter of fact, I don't feel like paying anymore.
I pay my tax through my company. My company actually do the deduction, so it's usually deducted from our salary before it gets to me. Yes, I have a taxpayer card which I use at the bank, and it serves so many purposes actually, so it's very helpful. Well, I would say it's okay. For me in Lagos State, I see what the government is doing with the tax I pay, so I'm cool with it. But for other states, I can't say. But for Lagos State, I see that my tax is really it's really working, and I can see infrastructures, the new BRT, and I heard all those are from our taxpayer money, so I'm cool.
Okay, so basically we saw that, and it seems like different people have their different opinions, but then it looks as though those living in Lagos have a better experience. These taxpayers want to see their taxes working for them.
Yeah, obviously. And that's what you see with different people, people with different folks with different yokes, maybe. People view it differently, and I guess for people who are in paid employment, it's easier for them. I had the opportunity of asking someone just 2 days ago about whether our organization actually remits our taxes, and she said she doesn't really care. They deduct it from me, and I don't care whether they remit it or not. We don't ask enough questions sometimes as citizens. We don't even query the government. We don't ask our legislators what is being done and how much was collected. Is as good as when you send someone to the market and you say, buy this for me, and it then comes back and gives you return. The government is actually working for us, and they should be working for us at every time. So when you pay your tax, you should also, number one, get your tax clearance certificate and be sure that it was actually remitted by the person who deducted from your salary. Or if you paid directly, you're also more interested in whether it was used for the right things, and you want to check how much Lagos State government is collecting, for example. What exactly have we seen in the state? How much did it cost to execute some of the projects that you see? That's the kind of engagement that we need to be having. Unfortunately, there is not so much of awareness. There is not so much of tax education for the people. So not so many people even know what their taxes are meant to achieve. So they are not asking enough questions. They don't really care whether they pay or not. And some people who pay directly, and that's what you see from that video, that the person who does his own business and pays directly feels the pain more and is asking, what exactly is this being used for? Mm-hmm. And that's the real concern that we have. And then, like I said, we need to engage the government the more and say to them, what exactly do you spend this money on?
But then
Can we have a return?
Before we go, as an individual, how would you suggest that I track where my tax is going to?
The easiest way, number one, like I said, is to say, where is the tax clearance certificate? For example, when you want to execute some projects in Lagos State, say you want to build a house, one of the requirements is that you should present a tax clearance certificate. And there are other things that you want to do in the state that you also need a tax clearance certificate for. And you need to start asking that question from your employers, that where is the tax that you deduct from my salary every month? And that's the place to start from. When you know that you are then making payments, you can ask questions when you get to those offices. There are places you get to, some offices where they want to ask for some other things, that they want to ask for some financial help, that ordinarily your tax is paying their salaries, for example. And then it helps you to stand firm and say, see, the fact that you are being paid here is because I pay my own tax. So it's a pull for, like I said, the recurrent expenditure as well as the capital expenditure. And that recurrent expenditure is most of the time salaries of government officials. And so they don't have any need to ask us for extra money for doing work for us. Again, when you then look at the capital expenditure, you're checking the road to your house and you're saying what exactly, if there are people to engage, if there is a senator, if there is a legislator who represent that district, you should be asking them what exactly, the local government chairman to even start with, what exactly are this money is being used for.
All right, thank you so much, Temitope, for joining me. It's always a pleasure having you in the studio. Thank you so much.
It's my delight. Thank you.
And happy Independence Day once
happy
again.
Independence Day.
All right, you're still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa. We'll be back right after this break.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
My name is Aliu M. Umar from Kapansan, Kaduna State. My business is mechanic engineer. I have 6 children. I get 2 in junior seminary Anglican school Kapansan, 3 there for academic school Baptist in Kapansan. But if I get anything, I will keep it small. If the money reach, when they are resumed, I go and pay their school fees. But now I get school fees steady. Now I enjoy the team very much. I will advise them to go and open the Diamond Extra account.
That money will shoot every person that we know can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed me for a long period of time.
That time why I carry gonorrhea. I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I come make that mama.
He just pulled it, he pointed and shot.
What is the soul of a man?
They suffer too much. They suffer too much.
Issues around the Nigerian police, we have to tackle it holistically.
The first time recorded music was heard in Nigeria is said to be in 1895. Music in Nigeria has since grown and evolved into one of the most lucrative forms of art in the country. This focus of 59 years of music in Nigeria as we celebrate Nigeria's independence starts with Fela Showande, who was the head of music and music research of the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation and fought against what he called the apartheid in art. His work, The Folk Symphony, was premiered on October 1st, 1960, during the independence celebrations. Nigeria has been called the heart of music because of her role in the development of West African highlife and the so-called palm wine music, which became the basis for juju. Babatunde King was the most famous star of the palm wine music and is likely to have coined the word juju. Highlife, Fuji, Juju, and Akpala music dominated throughout the 60s to the 80s, with a little bit of rise to the Afrobeat sound, with the likes of Aruna Ishola, Tunde Nightingale, Victor Olaiya, Ike Dairo. In the early to mid-1970s, three of the biggest names in Nigerian music history rose at their peak: Fela Kuti, Ebenezer Obey, and King Sunny Ade, while the end of that decade saw the start of Yo-pop and Nigerian reggae. Most of the sounds were traditional at the time, with different sounds and style of music dominating some region in Nigeria. Fela then switched from highlife to Afrobeat, using Pidgin English to cut across the country, and as such, gaining more prominence nationwide and even internationally. The 1980s saw the rise of the Nigerian reggae, and of course, this was based on major influences from the likes of Bob Marley. By the early 90s, we had seen a lot of American music, and that was when we started bringing pop sounds and a little bit of hip-hop. Shina Peters, who started gaining prominence at the tail end of the 80s, dominated the 90s alongside King Sunny Ade. The early 1990s also saw the rise of more funky music from the likes of Junior and Pretty. Mid-90s had us rocking to the Remedies, which comprised of Tony Tetula, Eddie Remedy, and Idris Abdul Karim. They were first to have a nationwide appeal, including Blackie. Two-Face cleared up the early 2000s with the Afropop vibe. He went solo in 2003 and dropped his album in 2004, which had the African Queen track. You are my African queen. Don Jazzy came into the scene same decade and was able to infuse tradition and Afropop to create various sounds. However, 2010 till date has been an infusion of Afrobeat and whatever sound you can blend with it. And like Burna Boy recently said in an interview, Afrobeat is the dough. Whatever you decide to make out of the dough is on you. The last 3 years has heralded the rise of the alternative sound, and this crop of artists have been dubbed people who still do music with relatable stories and meaning, as Afrobeat or Afropop have gone extremely mainstream that it may have lost its value and content. As we celebrate 59 years as a country and seeing the dynamics of music in Nigeria, one can only wonder what the next decade holds. For Plus TV Africa, I am Elsie Godwin.
Big stories live here.
Hear the stories making the headlines.
The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria.
I'm here at Eunice Bashorin Street.
The fire destroyed our transformer complete.
The lowest level you can.
This is Plus TV Africa. Africa, the big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Well, the Nigeria of my dream certainly is a place where people will be free to express themselves in a manner that shows that they are enlightened. And that means that good quality education must be provided for everybody. At least at this point in time, every Nigerian should have gone through the first basic primary education. Every Nigerian who has attained the age of school should be in school and must be treated as a genuine human being. And so if that freedom is not there, and then you feel that there is no more justice around, and you feel that we cannot get the best out of our earnings, then my dream Nigeria is being eroded.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them.
If you no talk, then go beat you.
Now 2,500 they pay.
Well, Nigeria, my dream, in relation to the sector that I am now, that is education, is for us to be able to train young people in such a manner that when they graduate, when they're out of school, they are able to do two things. First, create jobs for themselves. Two, be able to work or to fit into jobs that have been created by others. And they also have confidence and belief in our educational system that their education is not for the sake of going in and out of school alone, but for them to be able to get fulfillment from their investment in education and investment of that of their parents or guardians.
In recent times, getting employment is a major testimony. Getting a fantastic job, that's a cat with all the cream. So in what world does anyone ever leave that sort of job? Well, in this world. Not Your 9 to 5 show covers all the seemingly questions and intrigues.
I can't work for anybody. Number of times I spent with shoes, I see shoes in my dreams sometimes.
I can't be waiting for salary.
I know we have a lot of challenges.
Working for people is like starting from the scratch.
We have political issues, we have socio-economic issues, we even have spiritual issues.
I don't think I can do 9 to 5 anymore. So this is not your regular 9 to 5.
It's my life, my world.
Join me, Amaka Okoye, on Not Your 9 to 5, showing on Monday 5:30 p.m. and Thursday 11:30 a.m. West African time.
Thank you for staying with us and still watching Independence Day special on Plus TV Africa. Now, still on the issue of the economy. On this segment, we'll be speaking on Nigeria's power sector. Nigeria has an abysmal power situation yet to be tackled. A study conducted by the French Agency for Development revealed that the financial losses in Nigeria's power sector is growing by at least 474 billion naira annually. Nigeria is the largest economy in the sub-Saharan African region. However, limitations in the power sector constrain growth in the country. We are endowed with oil, gas, hydro, and solar resources and have the potential to generate 12,522 megawatts of electric power supply, according to USAID, from the existing plants. But most days, we are able to generate around 4,000 megawatts, which is really insufficient. Now, this again brings us back to the case where Nigeria is still saddled with insufficient power generation to meet up with the needs of our over 190 million population. Now let's understand the gravity of this issue better. I have in the studio with me Chuks Umezo Laura. He's the co-founder and Chief Operations Officer at Oxono Solar Nigeria Limited, as well as Femi Adeyemo, who is the founder and CEO at Energy. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you, Irene.
Happy Independence Day to you.
Happy Independence Day to you. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria.
First, when you were growing, did you ever scream, "Up Nepa"?
Absolutely. That's about 4 decades ago. So, 40 years ago, we know what the electricity situation used to be in Nigeria. So, absolutely.
And Chuks, did you ever scream "Up Nepa"? You were a very tush kid.
Oh, yes, I did too. It was very exciting. Anytime you come home and you meet power, you always ask them, please, is there light at home? So if there is light...
It was luxury.
Yes, it was.
There was a luxurious effect it had.
Apart from that, it also determined what your program for the evening would be like. So you adjust your programs depending on the availability of the light.
Okay, so let's get to business right now. Do you think we're at a dead end? We are over 200 million in population in the country, yet we have to depend on what? 5,000 megawatts of electric power supply. Are we at a dead end? Femi, we could start with you.
The statistics you mentioned is right. 200 million people. We are struggling with 5,000 megawatts. We need to be at 200,000 megawatts, which is 200 gigawatts. But will I say we are at the dead end? Not exactly, right? Because there are ways to do this. And we've seen countries, even neighboring countries, that have proven that if we do the right thing, we can get there, right? So I think it's about the will. Do we have the will as a nation to resolve the electricity crisis that we have in the country? So I won't say we are at the dead end, because there are even renewable solutions that are coming up, instead of us probably doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. We need to do it a different way.
Chuks, let's get your point of view.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Being at the dead end, no. Part of the things that keep exciting me about this nation, Nigeria, in spite of our huge challenges, is that, this nation is blessed with enormous human resources. Nigerians are one of the most brilliant minds you will get anywhere in the world.
We have proof.
Yes, so just like, Femi said, once there is a will, because unlike the natural resources that we have before, unlike the national distinct grid that we have before, deploying renewable energy resources, especially solar, it doesn't take so much time. And then the technologies are well advanced. It's not rocket science anymore. So in other words, in 1 year, if you want to, use solar, you can do so much in 12 months. once there is, the right will, the right policies, and the right infrastructures are in place. So, yeah, we're not at a dead end, and we can do so much more. Yeah.
Now, let's move a bit to the president's speech earlier today, being Independence Day. He said in August this year, we launched the Presidential Power Initiative to modernize the national grid in 3 phases, starting from the 5 megawatts to 7 megawatts, then to 11 megawatts by 2023, and finally gigawatts, sorry, yes, and finally 25 gigawatts afterwards. Yeah. Is this a realistic plan, Femi?
Again, I would say yes, it's realistic.
Is it achievable?
So that's a different question. And it's achievable, again, if we have the right will and approach it with the right mindset.
Is it implementable?
So like most things that we've had in the country, even policies, I think where we have failed as a nation is in the implementation of policies or target that we set. So is this achievable? Yes. Are we going to be able to implement it? That's a question that is, begging for answers. However, like Chuks mentioned, we have brilliant minds in the country, right? So, with this approach, and of course, we have policies that have been said before now, the Vision 30-30-30, that's to have 30 gigawatts by year 2030 and 30% of that renewables, which means the remaining 70% will rely on natural gas and other sources. So yes, it is achievable.
And for us as a nation?
Again, so when I look at that critically, from where I see it, I'm saying that, and it's heavy on centralized power system, which historically has not worked for us. 10 years ago, we were at around 4,000 megawatts. So if we want to get to 15 gigawatts, are we doing it differently? So I'm an advocate of decentralized energy. I won't sit here and say we should focus solely on renewables. We have gas resources. It's about us focusing on what will give us that right mix. And because of our nation, centralized is not going to give us all what we need. So we need to begin to look at decentralized. Even if we're installing more gas plants, can we have it distributed? There is no reason why we're generating in Egbe and we're transmitting it to Kaduna. It doesn't make any sense, and we need to begin to look at decentralized to be able to achieve 15 gigawatts or even the Vision 30-30.
All right, Chuks, let's get to the issue of policies and then frameworks as well that need to be implemented. Do you think we have the right policies and frameworks that would make us get to the point where we are now in a more competitive electricity market, being able to compete with the other nations?
To be honest, like Femi also said, I don't think the issue is not policies. We have so much policies that we've copied from other nations. The issue is, does the people in charge actually understand what the policies are all about and how they can go about to implement them? Because we have these policies written. We've had Vision, it was formerly like Vision 2010, then 2020, now it's 2030. It's as though we keep pushing the date forward. As it gets closer, we'll push this forward. Right. Now, but what we need to ask ourselves is, okay, how do we solve this quagmire? Like Femi said, decentralized is what a lot of us is beginning to preach about now. What we're saying is this: it may make more sense to use like renewable solar in the far north and generate, more for them, with a little mix from the gas, than because they are very far from the supply of this in gas. So we're just saying, okay, where you have more of gas, use more of gas there. Where you have more of wind, use more of wind there. Where you have more of solar, use more of this than solar there. Because most countries in Europe, particularly this in Spain, I mentioned about, one of the things that made it successful is that a lot of them had a good mix of renewable into their mix. Spain, Germany, most of them are nearing like 50%. There was even a day Germany celebrated 100% full day. That the whole energy they used that day came from renewables. So, but those things were being driven.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Absolutely.
Because they had a target from the European Union, and they are doing everything possible to meet those targets. Just like China. The same thing Nigeria signed at the Paris Club, in France a few years ago, but other countries seem to be taking a bit more serious than we are. I mean, to us, most times it's as though we're used to, signing dotted papers. When we sign it, we close it, and then that is it. When it's 1 year, 2 years, we start writing and we say, no, we need more time. Yeah, but I think that with the right mindset and knowing that these things can be, another question is this, the people in charge, do they actually believe that this is surmountable? Because if you don't believe that this is surmountable, it won't work. It will only exist in the newspapers.
Now let's talk about what happens on the field. Chooks, I know that you have a vast knowledge when it comes to solar, generation and all of that. I need to know what exactly happens when you're out there on the field. What are the challenges? How possible is it for virtually everyone, or maybe half the population of Nigeria, to adopt the solar energy, power generation platform?
In the last few years, the solar sector has gained a lot of milestones. This traction, But though, like many of us have observed too, one of the biggest setback too is the financing, because of the huge CapEx involved at the upfront. But even though now most of our financing institutions are beginning to look at the sector and see how they can come into the sector to finance the sector. I believe that as we go on, once we begin to do a bit more in the area of the financing, people begin to adopt solar a bit more. Because one thing that's changed is this, unlike 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where people say that solar doesn't work. A lot of people are not saying that anymore. So
tell us about the effectiveness.
Yeah, so effectiveness, recently we closed our Series A round of $9 million. For investors, European investors, all on, which is local, the Shell Fund was part of that. So because, these are investors from different climes, they know that the technology works and it can work everywhere. So in Nigeria now, we're seeing pent-up demand, like Chuk mentioned. A lot of people before think solar is that thing that can just power lights, right? That has changed significantly. We have a whole hospitals that we are powering with solar in Nigeria. So the adoption is getting very, very high. We're seeing traction. So effectiveness, solar can power the whole of Lagos. If we have enough land, comfortably. We see cities in China from Renewable in last year alone, they had about 20 gigawatts in the first 6 months. We are at 4 gigawatts as a country. But another country in 6 months installed 20 gigawatts of solar capacity. So effectiveness is not the problem. And I can tell you that investors are going to solar now because, it's good for the climate, greenhouse gases and all that. So effectiveness is not the problem. And the awareness is getting better as a nation. What has not happened before is on the financing. Because as I always said, if we are expecting people to buy, consumers to buy solar outrightly, then that might be a tough call. But we see organizations like ours now that are knocking on businesses and saying, okay, I can put the infrastructure on your facility and you pay me on a monthly basis. You're spending the money today anyway on a dirty source of fuel, which is diesel generator, right? Mm-hmm. So we see customers now switching to solar. They're paying by the month. They don't need to, to acquire the assets upfront. So with that, we see that there is hope. So on the policy, what I will expect that, as we're having policy around decentralized grid, we should be focusing on decentralized grid. The current government is doing a bit on that, but I will expect more on the implementation side and to make it easier for consumers, for the citizens to acquire. In countries like US, Germany, when they started that, it's highly rebated. You see 30% tax credit when you acquire solar. That is not happening here. We're not even asking for a rebate. Make the implementation of the policy that we already have to be as easy as possible to encourage citizens, both consumers and businesses, to be able to acquire.
Now, we know that based on what you both have said, right, we've been able to establish the fact that, of course, solar is one very good option.
Absolutely.
Now, looking long term, if you need to compare the cost of revamping our existing, our existing grids,
right,
and power generation platforms, and going fully into solar and other renewable energy sources, which is better for us?
You want to take that?
You know,
I mean, you both are in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what is happening. You've seen it firsthand.
Okay, let me go for that. So again, I will take us back to year 2010, 2001, the telecom sector. So it's the same thing that we experienced. If we had waited to revamp the legacy Nitel network, we wouldn't be where we are today with 100 million subscribers. So that's what we're saying. As much as we might want to revamp our transmission network, which is likely the bottleneck, generation is not the problem. If you generate 100 gigawatts tomorrow, centralized. If you can't transmit it, we will be at the same point, right? So as we're doing that, we need to look decentralized, and I mean, it is that is going to help us to be able to get to where we want to be.
Chooks.
Yeah, and also, you know, the other issue with transmission is also the huge cost. I mean, you know, transmitting infrastructures costs a whole lot. It costs a whole lot. So what I was saying is this: instead of trying to take power, you know, to someone living in a very far village, I mean, maybe it's going to cost $1 million. Why don't you use a fraction of that money, set up a solar mini grid for them in that village? The solar mini grid can come upstream in 4 weeks. I mean, you know, but the transmission, even when you have all the money, it takes a very long time to build. I mean, it takes a very long time, several months to build. You know, so that transmitting is one huge distinct challenge, you know, that we'll face as a people. So that's why, you know, we are calling for decentralized. I mean, look at these things, find out, okay, what mix works best for which area. Because to be honest, you know, I mean, the same thing is not going to work everywhere. I'll give you an example. Recently, I mean, you know, there was a state in the north where, you know, they built a very large, you know, wind farm and all that. But it didn't work. It didn't work. I mean, because you can't look at Germany and say they're doing, you know, they are doing so much from wind and copy everything and say you want to do wind here. You need to also look, okay, what are the resources that you have in that locality? Do you have more of solar? If you have more of solar, use solar. If you have more of wind, use wind. You know what I mean? But to just copy and paste, you know, wouldn't work, because that's a challenge that we see sometimes in our policies and the implementation. We seem to just, you know, copy what we see working somewhere else, just
without a feasibility study to know if this would really work in the region for which you're trying to.
Exactly, and just to add, I mean, we have the mini grid policy. I mean, which of course is distributed. We have the World Bank. I mean, working with our Ministry of Power and the Rural Electrification Agency is implementing a $300 million debt to be able to catalyze the adoption, of mini grid of solar home system. But again, implementation. Has it been set up to allow ease of adoption by the customers? So those are things that we need to look at to ensure that we get to where we want to get to as a nation.
Okay, but I know you both should be familiar with the proposed tariff hike. How do you think this would affect the sector and Nigerians?
Okay, let me go first. To be honest, I stand to be corrected, but reviewing our energy tariff may be one of the single biggest decisions that can unlock this sector. To be honest, and of course, you should expect that Nigerians are going to cry and complain about it. But I mean, if you have two people, two bakeries, and one is selling on credit, one is selling for cash, what will happen to the one selling on credit in a few years' time? They will close shop. One of the reasons why the sector is struggling to raise money is because no one wants to put funds in a venture that is losing money. We must have a tariff that is cost reflective. Our energy tariff is highly subsidized. If you look all around the world, even in the charts here, China and India, have almost the lowest distant tariff, but ours is still far lower than what they're paying. So if you want the sector to come alive, just like we have in telecommunications, we must allow the market demand and supply determine the tariff.
All right, we're running out of time, but finally, if for those that want to leverage on renewable energy, platforms, renewable energy entrepreneurs as well, how can they be a part of this entire process?
Yeah, so there are impact investors, like All On Shell, USADF, that are looking at new entrepreneurs that are just coming up that they can align to, and there are competitions that they normally set up. And for us as an organization, I mean, we partner with even upcoming organizations, I mean, for our installation network across the country. So those are different ways that upcoming entrepreneurs can get into the sector.
Chooks, you brought about, I mean, yeah, like the organ when it comes to solar generation.
Just like Femi said, organizations like us, Oxano Solar too, we've enjoyed a lot of goodwill, a lot of support from Olon, USADF. Because the financing from them, also Bank of Industry has also been helpful. Right. They also helped us, to expand our solar panel assembling, plant located here in this Lagos. So the market is growing. Upcoming entrepreneurs can find a way. I mean, if you're very good in the technical, maybe you can look at the installation aspect of the business, because somebody like me, I started out as a technician installing solar systems. So that is one area. Distribution is another area. Franchising is also one big area that is coming up. For example, an upcoming entrepreneur can walk up to Energy and say, okay, can I be your franchise partner, maybe in Kano State, in Kaduna? So there are many opportunities where people can come in. So that is one. Even revenue collection is also another big area for people playing the mini grid space. You can go there and say, okay, I'm familiar with this terrain, I can help you collect the revenue. So there are many options.
The hidden smile on your face tells me that there's also money in the sector.
Absolutely. It's my charity.
All right, thank you so much. It was amazing having you both in the studio. Thank you so much. Happy Independence. Happy Independence.
Thank you.
All right, now this brings us to the end of the conversation. We still have a lot more for all our viewers. Once again, happy Independence.
It for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's Tea Time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
This TV station, Plus TV Africa, is designed to help to create a paradigm shift. The more we tell our stories, the more we learn from whatever our past mistakes have been.
We can be much more than we are. We should be doing a lot in refineries.
And we are definitely investing in our staff. We're training, we're developing, we're creating the kind of workforce that will be the envy of the international broadcast. The quality of the reportage, the quality of our presentation, the quality of our production will be obvious. We're saying that we want to reach Africans wherever they are and get the message across to them. That's what Plus TV Africa is all about.
The Nigerian film industry is largely dynamic, keeps evolving, and is much older than Nollywood. Before the birth of Nollywood, history holds dear to heart filmmakers like Hubert Ogunde, Tunde Kelani, Ola Balogun, Moses Olaiya, and Eddie Ugboma. Tunde Kelani shares what it was like to be a filmmaker at the time and how they found inspiration.
I found inspiration, from the community itself, from the environment, and then I started reading, there was quite a lot of books around. Started in Dio Fagunwa, or the saga of the Dio Fagunwa's, books, or the 5 books. And then I went, discovered the Yoruba Traveling Theatre. And I'm one of the few people who have seen Kola Ogumola live on stage in the Pan Drink Card. And then I got into London Film School at the time when Star Wars, George Lucas' Star Wars. In fact, it started with Stanley Kubrick's 2001 Space Odyssey. Freaked me out completely. And then, of course, Spielberg came with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And then Star Wars, came. And at this time, I thought, wow, this was the end of the world, only to realize that it was just actually the beginning. So my inspiration has come from everywhere.
Nollywood may not be where we hope or expect it to be, but it is a general consensus that Nollywood industry has done very well, albeit with much room for improvement. As we celebrate 59 years as a country, the Nollywood industry is roughly half that age, as the production of the all-time classic home video, Living in Bondage, has been pegged the watershed of Nollywood. Some industry players share with us the happenings leading to Nollywood.
I think Nollywood was an accident of nature, if I use that. So the Americans would call it a freak accident, but this was a good freak accident, as it were. In the early 90s, there were very strategic and important independent producers. Independent producers removed from the Nigerian Television Authority production circle, because then, in the 80s we had a lot of programs from NTA, which was a sole network then. And there were not private television stations at all at that time, so there was a monopoly by NTA. So a lot of the productions then, New Masquerade, Samanja, a whole lot of them, they were done from the NTA production structure.
I am not sure there is any other single individual that has influenced Nollywood more than Amaka Igwe. A lot of the people who work now were at one time or the other as students. She believed that she would say when something stands with it. She had always felt that we all could benefit from a bigger industry if we left our little comfort zones, comfort places, so to speak, and thought more in terms of the bigger picture. What do I do that makes it easier for the next person to do whatever he or she needs to do? And that's the kind of person she was. And she started pretty early. She was 24 years old when she created Checkmate.
So we began to see independent producers coming on NTA network and producing and putting their programs. Those programs gave a fresh verve to the drama series and the telemovies. NTA sort of brought a policy, I think, in 1991 or 91, late 91 or mid 91, which, because NTA was commercialized by the then Babangida government, they commercialized NTA. So NTA, in coming out as a commercialized venture, said producers should start paying for airtime. That's not done anywhere in the world. You don't pay for airtime.
In those days, the NTA would commission a show and give you like 12 episodes for it to work as a weekly. If it doesn't work, they will cancel it. So there were a lot of people on the line at the NTA waiting. So they stopped. It meant, and they stopped because they started importing telenovelas, which were cheaper and made them more money. So they stopped. That meant that there were a lot of people outside who had scripts that could not be produced. There were actors and directors who didn't have work.
There was a void for a long time. So the audience, I was used to watching Checkmate, used to watching their favorite stars from those independent productions. They were yearning for something. They didn't see all those guys. They didn't see the RMDs, the Ramsey Noirs, the Liz Bensons and all that. So when Okechukwu Ogunjofo had this idea within that same period to say, let's go and shoot something, Living in Bondage, and he partnered with Kenneth Inebwe, and that movie came out in 92. The movie sold like wildfire because there was naturally a hunger. The audience was waiting to see something, and they saw something on home video, and a whole lot of VHS tapes were all over the place too as well in homes. That was how the home video industry was birthed, because there was a lull from television, and by that freak accident and experiment, that void was filled. And then after that, everybody started saying, we can actually do home videos.
How far has Nollywood come? What has changed? And what are the things that are constant?
I think Nollywood has done a phenomenal job.
I think that Nollywood is in a very interesting place right now. I think that potentially Nollywood is underachieving. I think that Nollywood could easily be 10, 20, 50 times bigger than it currently is. And that's not refusing to acknowledge the growth that has happened, say, over the past 6, 7 years.
You know, we're a lot better now. We have the better manpower, better cameras, better directorial perspective to storytelling, to filming, to directing. Actors have improved greatly, and there's a whole lot. And the market's value is even a lot better. We're getting more international recognition. People are trying to collaborate with us from outside the shores of Africa and beyond.
Africa and Nigeria is said to be a sea of untold stories. We have so much stories to tell, and Nollywood brings the opportunity to share our culture with the world. Nollywood is currently contributing over 5% of Nigeria's GDP. What do we expect from the industry between the next 5 to 10 years?
We need to have our own film village. We need a whole acre of land to begin to erect what we need to sell. Look, this industry contributes a whole lot.
The work we need to do, even if we did it at the best of our abilities, will take us at least a decade. The work we need to do. Nollywood's values. Oftentimes, we are still too apologetic about Nollywood. When we talk to foreigners about Nollywood, it's only Nigerians I hear speak about Nollywood to foreigners the way we speak about Nollywood, almost as if we are apologizing for it. Meanwhile, travel for a film festival featuring Nollywood, everyone is wondering how we are doing it at all.
We have been inducted into the Oscars. I am a member of the Nigerian Oscar Selection Committee, as it were, and amongst 11 of my colleagues. We are getting more into the global mainstream politics of filmmaking. We're beginning to understand that there is a huge market in the diaspora that we have not explored. I do think in 10 years' time, a couple of Nigerian films would have won Oscars.
Yes, we're going to see more and more high-quality Nigerian movies that can receive international attention and that will receive international attention. It's already happening. In 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to see a lot more of it happening.
Nigeria is 59. Industry practitioners have had to fight tooth and nail to establish the industry with next to nothing support from the government. However, as the country marches towards its 60th anniversary, the current governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria has recognized contributions of the creative sector to the economy, hence committed to invest 200 billion naira to the sector.
For Nollywood to achieve its potential, we need to put structure behind it. And by structure, I don't mean the federal government spending X amount of money in this fund or that fund. That's not structural.
Expectation is that the disbursement of this fund, if done properly, should help to further strengthen the industry. Elsie Godwin reporting for Plus TV Africa.
Well, the Nigeria of my dream was a country that exuded a lot of pomp and pageantry, a lot of pride in the Nigerian, and then we dreamt of transformation of the country. I couldn't really dream in the way you put it for the new Nigerian. I was just going into my teenage years, and we were just hoping that everything will improve much better than things were. But look, we didn't have the type of power cuts that we had. NEPA then, it wasn't even called NEPA, it was called ECN, Electricity Corporation of Nigeria. It performed, okay? And then we didn't have the type of flooding that you find. The population of Lagos was small compared to what you now have. The estimate is between 18 and 20 million people living in Lagos. But Lagos of my time was not that heavily populated. And we had fancy stores like Kingsway, like UTC, where we shopped. And we had de facto bread, things that you don't have today. So it was a small city which catered for the needs and interests of the residents generally. Insecurity was not then a topical issue, and life was buoyant, generally speaking.
Politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi?
I think we've done very well in the very difficult circumstances in which we took over governance.
Plus, politics will feel the pulse of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows, to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody come and say!
The perception in itself does more harm than actual corruption that you have.
Plus, politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
I actually moved back to Nigeria to open a bakery. This was my goal, and everything I did up till this point was in preparation for this. First of all, life was great because I moved in 2015 right before the recession, right? It was awesome. I was like, wow, there's so much money out here, man. The cost of overheads, power generation, water, you have to be your own local government. And there are no tax breaks. Many places where, where they realize the small business environment is difficult would offer some kind of tax breaks and incentives. We don't do that out here. We want you to come back. We want you to, to start businesses here, but we're not going to do anything to help you. All my experiences in the past have led me ultimately to where I am now.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely, right? No question. He's a living legend.
Oh, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, no.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild.
This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity.
No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
Big stories live here.
Hear the stories making the headlines.
The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria.
I'm here at Yunus Bashorin Street, where
the fire destroyed our transformer complete.
lowest level that you can.
This is Plus TV Africa. The big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
Big stories live here.
That money will shoot every person that we know can shoot. We don't let people die there.
You could have killed me for a long period of time.
Since that time why I carry gonorrhea. I first go hospital first, but it no go. Now I come make that mama. He just pulled it, he pointed and shot.
What is the soul of a man? They suffer too much. They suffer too much.
Issues around the Nigerian police, we have to tackle it holistically.
A lot of the jobs that exist today will not exist in the next 10 years. 10 years.
When I see people today shouting, we're not too young to run, we are ready to run. Ready to run to where?
The people of excellence are, to a certain extent, being held ransom by idiots and bandits.
Once you are in government, you believe everything you do is right. And once you are in opposition, everything the government does is wrong.
And so it's time for us to take over power.
Hello and welcome to another segment as we look at the evolution of fashion in Nigeria. I'm Elsie Godwin, and as usual, I've got Ewa Oritu and Ifeolu Oshunke. Hey guys.
Good.
How you doing?
Still on the matter, the independence matter.
Okay. All right, here in the studio to discuss Nigeria's fashion industry with us, the Nigerian fashion designer Ejiro Imostafari. She is the originator of Ejiro Imostafari brand, which was launched to meet the fashion needs of modern women. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having
No
me.
drum rolls. We forgot that. We always do the drum roll thing.
All right, before we get into this conversation proper, we had a chat with the CEO of House of Bruno, Frank Oshodi, earlier, and he spoke on what was obtainable at the time he launched his fashion business. Have a look.
It was in 1991, I guess. First I started off as a model, so from modeling I just went into fashion designing. And that time we had designers like Princess International, Frajuda's wife, who owned Princess International. You have Bobogi in Ikeja. We have Auntie Abba Folawiyo, and then we have Mofechi. And then most of these designers then were more into kaftans, boo-boos. You know, they made it very trendy. They made them different from what you see across other West African countries. Because that was what was happening then. But these designers took it to a different level, but it's still in the kaftan, long, short, and, you know. And then until designers like Rose of Sharon came in, and she, at that time, was looking into using Ashoke to do a whole lot of stuff. Short dresses, long dresses, wedding dresses, and, you know, made beautiful stuff with stuff like that. So as at the time, I came into fashion, that was obtainable. And you have these people working with mostly brocades, brocade. Print was not really, print was what everybody was wearing, but it was not what the designers, I think, thought at that time were sophisticated enough for people to wear to events, you know. So, because then you had laces. Laces were worn at Iran, but mostly at that time as well. But those designers worked mostly with brocade. Brocades were sophisticated, they were sharp, they were glossy, and, you know, could stand test of time until, you know, this Antihaba and Mrs. Fulon Shalakija came in with doing a whole lot with the ashoke, and other designers started doing ashoke as well. Then Dakova came in with linen, and linen in all textures, and more into like Western, you know, his creations were into like jackets of all sorts and different textures and qualities. So these are the things that were really happening at the time I started into fashion. So
on how far Nigeria has come in terms of fashion, here is what he had to say.
So from modeling, I just went into fashion designing. And that time we had designers like Princess International, Frajura's wife, who owned Princess International. You have Bobogi in Ikeja. We have Auntie Abba Folawiyo. And then we have Mofechi. And then most of these designers then were more into kaftans, boo-boos. You know, they made it very trendy. They made them different from what you see across other West African countries. Because that was what was happening then. But these designers took it to a different level, but it's still in the kaftan, long, short, and, you know, and then until designers like Rose of Sharon came in, and she, at that time, was strictly into using ashoke to do a whole lot of stuff. Short dresses, long dresses, wedding dresses, and, you know, made beautiful stuff. But Nigeria has come a long way in terms of fashion, and I must tell you that in the whole of Africa, Nigeria comes first as far as consumption of fashion is concerned, as far as trend is concerned, as far as consumption of fabrics are concerned, and accessories. Do you understand? I mean, you go to our weddings, traditional and church weddings, we look exceptionally fantastic. Even though some of us get it wrong, yeah, it's also part of it. Because what you consider wrong is right for some people. Do you understand? Everybody have their own personality. So I say Nigerians are exceptional when it comes to fashion. We are the highest consumers of style, fashion, fabric, makeup. You understand what I'm saying? So I think for me, in terms of fashion, in Africa, with respect to how far we have come from, I mean, the date we had our independence, I think we have done exceptionally well. I mean, in the whole of Africa, Nigeria has done well. We've done well. We're still doing well.
All right, and speaking on the influence of westernization on our style and how the industry has evolved, here is what he had to say.
More of tilting to the western side. And I must say that even in China it's the same thing. In India it's the same thing. In America it's the same thing. I mean, over the years, fashion has evolved all over the world. What they wear in America today is not what they wore like 60 years ago. You know, the need to make it simpler, more comfortable, and for ladies more sexy, more appealing, you understand, and functional, has made fashion to evolve.
Welcome back. So do you agree that Nigeria is the most fashionable country in Africa?
Oh, absolutely. I think any African will agree with that. Yes, so yeah, I mean, South Africa comes close, but then Nigerians have a certain panache to them. I mean, I think it's who we are as a people. It's not necessarily like the designers, or it's just the people. When a Nigerian shows up somewhere, even the personality goes before. So when you wear the clothes, you come with all that personality, all that Joseph Vive. So there's no way they wouldn't see Nigerian. And we like to consume fashion. We love colors. We're not scared of colors. We're not scared of vavavoom. And the South Africans call Nigerian dressing power dressing. So, I mean.
Okay, so let's take away the fashionable. Do you think we promote our culture enough?
Well enough, I would say no. I would say no. We now, fair enough, I studied fashion in Nigeria. Like, that's what I studied in higher institution in Yabatek. And I graduated 2007. Yeah. So, from then, it was like a taboo to study fashion. Yeah. But now,
You're supposed to be a medical doctor.
Yes.
No, a lawyer.
Doctor, no, I was going to be a medical doctor. And I chose fashion. My parents almost, it's fine, I'm here now. So, but now, we now consider fashion as a proper profession. In Nigeria, it's cool to have a child studying fashion. It's now cool to have a child and say, my child is a designer. Oh, he studied medicine, but now it's a designer. Owns that nice fashion house. I mean, it's now something of note to do. But do we consume African culture? I would say not well enough. Like the flamboyance of our culture transcends to how we dress, but not the culture per se. Maybe even the fabrics. Like, I try as much as possible to use Nigerian fabrics. I mean, not just print, because print is not African fabric. It's not. The Ankara we all call African fabric is that we are the highest, we are the consumers of Africa of that, and even lace. Lace originated from places like, it's from Swiss and places like that. They make those fabrics, they will go and buy them and bring them. Yeah, this one is from Swiss lace. Like, yeah, you get. And then print is from Holland. It's from Hollandis. Vilsco is from Holland. So these are not our traditional fabrics. But because we have become the main consumers of this fabric, it's now like African fabric. Stuff that's inherently ours is ashoke, akwete, woven fabrics. And then when we now do tie-dye on maybe plain cotton fabric, like the way they would do it in maybe Oyo, Isenyi, Abeokuta, with our own motifs, because you know tie-dye is all around the world. So when you tell your stories with your motifs, things that make sense in your language or like in your villa, then that's your fabric. So it would be nice for us to use more of our language, our signing, you know, to write our motifs, to create our designs. And the good thing with even the other fabrics that we now call as like the Villisco and stuff, the designers come here to draw inspiration. So that's why when you see the fabrics, it makes sense to you. They draw motifs of stuff they see when they come to Africa. So it then makes sense so that you can connect to you. So it would be nice when we do more of that. Our woven fabrics, our tie and dye.
Do you think we'll ever get to that point
where
we'll do more of that?
I appreciate the clarity that she's putting out there now that look, the lace is not even, because I'm always of the opinion that why do we still import Ankara lace, you know, and things like that? Shouldn't it be the other way around? But
we should have done that by now, because like China and China is like a production center for the whole world. China produces Ankara and lace and all of that now, and we even go there to buy as well. Nigeria, back when we were growing up, or before we were even born, we had a lot of mills and textile factories, and they are all still there and shut down. Except that they're now trying to change the laws and say, okay, they want to revive. Villisco is coming to set up like 5 factories in Nigeria and stuff. But we had stuff like Uniwax, Suntex, all of them. All of Isolo Road, it was like an industrial hub for textiles. In the north, you have several of them shut down. The cotton was like oil back in the days in the 60s and the 50s. But we just let all of that go to smokes when we found oil. So it would be nice if we could rediscover that, and that provides jobs across all the trade, so from the farmers to the cotton pickers to the spinners to the. So we don't even produce our own thread when we have cotton.
Wow.
So it's as bad as that. So as much as style-wise, Nigerians have evolved, but I think we've regressed economically as what fashion could have done or brought to the table in Nigeria.
Is there a body that guides fashion designers in Nigeria? Because I think this is not something that would, like we agreed this morning, we can't wait for the government, for Nollywood and the music scene. Do you think that if there's a body and you guys come together, you can bring back those what's it called, factories, and then we start producing?
Well, there are several bodies, funny enough, and some of them as old as Nigeria. Yes, not an active member anymore. Not an active member anymore. It's just too much politics. Everything then becomes all about. If it's not about fashion, then I'm not really. If it's not about the business, then let's make better use of our time. But then we have those bodies, and they are working, and they have been working for years. The only thing is we don't have enough fashion education in Nigeria. So a lot of people practicing fashion are not professionally trained. They figure it out as they go. And so they bastardize the profession, and they can't be bothered about the ethics of the trade and sustainability of it. Only those who are into it for the right reasons. And funny enough, a lot of people get into fashion. A lot of people to be popular, then some people just to make money. So when you just do
that was the only job for.
Yeah. So
okay,
it's to be popular,
from
make
what
money.
you've said
so
now,
ethics goes to smoke. Sustainability goes to smoke.
Everything you need to get this business running is imported.
Yes.
Almost, or everything.
My sister, everything.
So how do you cope? How does the business run? How does it function?
You rely on the importers.
Okay.
Basically.
So if the federal government wakes up tomorrow to put ban effects on
it will be amazing, but
what would happen?
The federal government will have to have done other things like, okay, make sure the factories are working, make sure there are cotton farms that are healthy and producing cotton and spinning and producing, and then we are spinning them with threads from there, we're weaving fabric, and then then shut down I'm all for shut down the borders. Keep it, like, let us die here. Make it. Yes.
So would you say it affects the cost of production also in terms of pricing?
Obviously, it
does. Because sometimes when I want to buy a made in Nigeria, Ankara, I'm like, okay,
No, let me put it this way to you. The Nigerian fashion entrepreneur has to do everything for themselves. School, we don't have enough fashion training schools. So they go to these expensive schools, private schools. They don't get a full, wholesome education. They start figuring out everything by themselves. So, okay, you set up, you pay your rent. You don't get as much support. There is support now, because I did get government grant, and if you know the right places to look, British Council supports a lot. Some governments, like Lagos State has this LS, Lagos State Support Entrepreneurship something fund. So they train tailors and pattern cutters. So there's some support. You just have to know the right places to look. So they go through all of these phases, and then you buy your own generator, you run your own machine, you figure it out. So by the time you're putting a price on this clothes, all this stuff ahead.
Think about everything.
You just put it right back there, customer, come and pay. But then if you had production hubs, for example, designers are not like, if you want to buy ready to wear, we don't all have to have small cottage factories and say I'm a designer and I'm producing my clothes myself. If you had enough production hubs, like you can just go to production hub, run your designs, they produce it, you focus on marketing, like your marketing campaign and pushing out your designs. So that way you take off a lot of the overhead, you take off a lot of the stress, and then the quality of the product is higher, and then the cost comes lower. If you do that, other African countries are doing that, and they're not even close to being fashionable at all. Mauritius, Egypt, Tanzania, they all have production
with lesser
hubs.
population,
And they even produce clothes for people
population.
abroad. They're making clothes and supplying Gucci, all of them. They're making clothes with them.
Let's move to the runway. Sorry, go on, shoot.
Okay, so I was going to ask, fashion is being recycled. What fashion trend do you think would never go away? Like, it would just keep
coming back over and
LBD never goes away. The little black dress. Like, never, ever, ever goes away. Like,
it's just perfect.
It's just there, like little black. If you want to go out, like, if you don't have anything in your wardrobe, every woman wants to have at least one nice black dress that fits well, shows leg, shows skin in the right places.
What African trend
You roll and buba, it's not going anywhere. Yeah, that's why I kind of
fortified it to call its own.
Excuse me, it was an innovation.
Yeah. I remember.
Yes, it was. So Oleku has been there. Oleku has evolved over time. Like Oleku was a term used like in the 60s for shorts, Rambuba, tight, and Into Embassy even brought it back in Ankara where she did mixes. But when I did the Oleku drape dress, I just thought, okay, I want to make this Rambuba that we wear into a dress that anybody around the world could put it on and just think I'm wearing a dress. But to me, I've sold you my culture, and you're wearing it, and you're happy, and you're feeling cool. And then, why does it always have to be in heavy? Okay, I was fresh out of fashion. I'll call it not university, polytechnic, but for the sake of it, university, fresh off trying to start my business. You know, I didn't have a car, jumping Okadas, whatever. So the tradition, and I loved Ramba growing up. Like all my pictures with my dad. My dad, I'll wear the remaining piece of his Babariga and I'll make Ramba. So I was the only girl. So it was always cool to just dress up with dad and go to church. So secondary school, I was still trying, you know, when I come from QC on holidays. But when I was in Yabatek, I don't think I wore Ramba once. So by the time I graduated, I'm like, is this how I'm just going to lose this thing that I've loved wearing growing up? And I said, no. So I started researching, what can I do? I liked wearing light fabrics, chiffons. I love drapery. That was my major in school. I wanted to just keep researching. I said, okay, let me put it in chiffon. Okay, when I make it into chiffon, how would they wear it that it will not, if I want to confuse them, I'm just wearing a dress. Don't be thinking I'm wearing Ramba. So I was just playing in my office one day and I came up with how to drape tight. I said, okay, let me make a dress, made a dress, added some rubbish zippers and lining. So I tried to sell that thing for 3 months. Nobody bought one. So I said, okay, cool, maybe I've overthought this thing. So first of all, I took out the lining. Remember, it doesn't come with lining. We wear slips. Women have it ingrained in their head that they wear a slip under it. So separate it, take the slip and keep it separate and keep the dress separate. Okay, reduce the joining. Let them have to tie it a bit by themselves, you know. But that's part of the drama of wearing Remember. So I made it joined only at the back. Then you have to figure out the rest. And then boom, went to the fashion week, and before the show, people said ordering plenty, and then that's how it became viral.
That's very interesting.
Are you? No. All right. Let's move to runway, because I think that is one area that we're seriously lagging behind in Nigeria.
Really?
Yeah. The reason I'm going to say that is because we have a lot of fashion festivals abroad, and then you see a lot of runway shows, but we are limited, unless you hear about the Bank Fashion Weekend, this fashion weekend, and then when you finally get to see, because I've been privileged to attend a few of this, you see that the designs they're putting out there are more of the Western styled themed clothes, like Uncle Frank Oshodi said. Do you think it should be that way? Is that what we should be doing on the runway? We should rock our Oliku and all of that.
Okay. Now, this is where I'm going to sound very controversial because I'm on all those platforms you're talking about. But on the sidelines, I'm constantly saying, I think as Nigerian designers, especially the top Nigerian designers, you know, the need to be bougie, we are catering so much to the West. Like, we're so concerned about how the West will see us, what they would like to see in our clothes. We forget about our own culture and maybe what should be inspiring it. But there are different fashion weeks. So I guess each fashion week has to have its own identity and what they cater to and what they like, because whoever pays the piper dictates the tune. Yes, so I guess that's what you're getting to see. But there are other fashion weeks like Africa Fashion Week, Nigeria, and they promote the other kind of looks you're talking about. There are several other fashion weeks like that, and there was the one by Lexi Mojo Eyes. I can't remember the name of the fashion week now. So there are other platforms, but like the biggest ones promote, and then the top Nigerian is what we clap for now. Nigerians like the West. So it's what we celebrate, it's what we want to see. Once you are bougie, that's what you'll be clamoring for. If people like honored the traditional designer more, people will aspire to that. So it's only a cautious effort for those who really want to say, I am Nigerian, and I believe that what is Nigerian is global. We are not second-class citizens. We are citizens like every other person in the world. They are the ones that will keep pushing the African story forward. The Nigerian designers, even the bougie ones, still try. I mean, in their clothes, even when you say it caters to the West, you see that for me, every collection must have something like a danshiki. It must have something like an Irambaba. It just might not look basic to you, and that's where designing comes in. I can't just give it back to you just the way it is. I have to explore new materials, explore new lengths, new proportions, new stuff. So a lot of designers have that. People like what's the guy's name? I can't remember. People have stuff like that where they try to make suits that look like danshikis and stuff. So you see them there. It's just maybe the presentation is not it shouldn't even be so basic. So even when you look at America, they have their tradition. You see influences, you see bohemian look. It comes from like the American Indians traditional lifestyle. And then you have that bohemian look. But it's not like direct the way they wear it traditionally. That's the way you transfer it. That's what.
So my next question has to be something.
We don't wait to Friday to wear. People wear dashikis to work on Monday in Nigeria now.
So it's something I picked from social media, right? And when you see someone who they would say expose their body parts, the conversation starts, and someone will say you are indecent, and then the next person will say, but when you look at the way we used to dress in those days, we show our body and all that. So what would you say is the proper Nigerian culture dressing? Is it very conservative, or what is it like?
Okay, my parents will see this. I'm still a child of God, I'm still a Christian, but let's be honest here. The traditional African dressing, like Africans don't wear clothes because of our weather. We are in the tropics, so we never, like the traditional African dressing is to wear no clothes. And those who wore blankets were closer to the temperate, like towards South Africa, you know, Kenya, they have this blanket they wear and tie. But go back. They just wear one thing on the wrapper down here. If you go to the village thing now, some my grandmas will just tie it and leave everything here open. Nobody sees it as indecent. So, and then they have maiden dances where people just wear beads on their hips and then they come out and they're gyrating everything. That is traditional African.
I mean, they still have that in South Africa, right?
And even doctors and co will wear it and come out and nobody. Traditional African dressing is the most sexy, indecent, if you want to use that word.
True.
Okay.
They taught us to wear clothes because they were wearing clothes where they were coming from.
I wish we could continue, but I'm so sorry. Our time is on.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Ejiro, for being here. This was a very enlightening conversation on the Nigerian fashion industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, this is Plus TV Africa, and this is a special broadcast looking at every sector in the economy as we mark Nigeria as 59. Thank you for watching. My name is Elsie Godwin. Keep watching.
First point of accountability is asking questions.
Hello and welcome to Plus Sports and Plus TV Africa. I am Udoka Njoko.
Hi everyone, welcome to Plus Training.
You cannot continue to recycle poverty while you're spending a lot of money on unproductive ventures.
The government has to feel the impact.
Honorable Commissioner, sir, welcome to the show.
The first time recorded music was heard in Nigeria is said to be in 1895. Music in Nigeria has since grown and evolved into one of the most lucrative forms of art in the country. This focus of 59 years of music in Nigeria as we celebrate Nigeria's independence starts with Fela Showande, who was the head of music and music research of the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation and fought against what he called the apartheid in art. His work, The Folk Symphony, was premiered on October 1st, 1960, during the independence celebrations. Nigeria has been called the heart of music because of her role in the development of West African highlife and the so-called palm wine music, which became the basis for juju. Babatunde King was the most famous star of the palm wine music and is likely to have coined the word juju. Highlife, Fuji, Juju, and Akpala music dominated throughout the 60s to the 80s, with a little bit of rise to the Afrobeat sound. with the likes of Aruna Ishola, Tunde Nightingale, Victor Olaiya, Ike Dairo. In the early to mid-1970s, three of the biggest names in Nigerian music history rose at their peak: Fela Kuti, Ebenezer Obey, and King Sunny Ade, while the end of that decade saw the start of Yo-pop and Nigerian reggae. Most of the sounds were traditional at the time, with different sounds and style of music dominating some region in Nigeria. Fela then switched from high life to Afrobeat, using Pidgin English to cut across the country, and as such, gaining more prominence nationwide and even internationally. The 1980s saw the rise of the Nigerian reggae, and of course, this was based on major influences from the likes of Bob Marley. By the early 90s, we had seen a lot of American music, and that was when we started bringing pop sounds and a little bit of hip-hop. Shina Peters, who started gaining prominence at the tail end of the 80s, dominated the 90s alongside King Sunny Ade. The early 1990s also saw the rise of more funky music from the likes of Junior and Pretty. Mid-90s had us rocking to the Remedies, which comprised of Tony Tetula, Eddie Remedy, and Idris Abdul Karim. They were first to have a nationwide appeal, including Blackie. Two-Face cleared up the early 2000s with the Afropop vibe. He went solo in 2003 and dropped his album in 2004, which had the African Queen track.
Yeah, you are my African queen.
Don Jazzy came into the scene same decade and was able to infuse tradition and Afropop to create various sounds. However, 2010 till date has been an infusion of Afrobeat and whatever sound you can blend with it. And like Burna Boy recently said in an interview, Afrobeat is the dough. Whatever you decide to make out of the dough is on you. The last 3 years has heralded the rise of the alternative sound, and this crop of artists have been dubbed people who still do music with relatable stories and meaning, as Afrobeat or Afropop have gone extremely mainstream that it may have lost its value and content. As we celebrate 59 years as a country and seeing the dynamics of music in Nigeria, one can only wonder what the next decade holds. For Plus TV Africa, I am Elsie Godwin.